A former NFL and Baltimore Ravens scout exposed the Ravens' weakness that hopefully will be fixed next year.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Ravens. Welcome into the show. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and now the #1 sports podcast network. Appreciate everybody for being here, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day. And of course, thanks for all of the support here on the show. Thanks to all the everydayers, the first-time listeners, if you're somewhere in the middle, thank you as well. We have 5 days a week here, plus more of daily Ravens coverage and content. And that is now twice per day, both in the morning with the regular show, 6 a.m. Eastern time, and here on Locked On Ravens PM in the evening at 6 p.m. Eastern time. On today's show, we'll be diving into a former NFL and Ravens scout exposing a Ravens weakness that hopefully will be fixed next year. And then we got team report cards being revealed. We didn't know if they were going to be out. There was this whole grievance situation where they weren't going to be made public or anything, but apparently people got a hold of them, and the Ravens, their report alongside the rest of the NFL is out. So we'll dive into those as well. Let's start off here with what Daniel Jeremiah had to say, who again worked for the Ravens and a couple of other organizations as a scout, and now obviously is in media and does a great job with everything that he does. He was up at the podium at the scouting combine and had a really interesting comment that I wanted to talk about. So he ended up talking about how the Ravens got away from that big player bully mentality and expects them to return to that, or at least he said he's looking for them to return to that. He said, quote, "When they're at their best, they're big everywhere. It's not just big DTs or some big edge setting guys, but big corners, big linebackers. They want to be kind of a bully." And I think they got away from that a little bit. And there are some finesse players and speed players they brought in. I look to them trying to get back to that tenacity and that style. And I actually do agree with this. Now, I don't think it has to be the Ravens have to draft every single player in that, oh, they have to be super big and, that they're going and being these like huge guys at their position. But, particularly like at the cornerback spot, when they drafted guys like Marlon Humphrey, Brandon Stevens, like these big corners that you could have playing up against the run. And you see that with certain guys. Like that was their thing of like, okay, when you draft Kyle Hamilton, that's a guy who like is a big player at his position, and you have him there and can go do a lot of different things. That was one of the big things about this Ravens defense is like they can fly sideline to sideline, but they're so big, especially out on the edges in the secondary, that doesn't impact the coverage skills. Obviously, guys are just good, but you can also have a lot of good run defense there. And even potentially when it comes to some offensive linemen, Linderbaum's not the biggest guy in the world. And again, I think Linderbaum's really good, by the way, but it's just like the mentality that they've had. And this might be more of a defensive focused thing, but I think that the Ravens should try to get back to that a little bit more this upcoming year. And I just think the mentality of the defense has waned over the last handful of years, in my opinion, really the last couple under Zach Orr. And again, no disrespect towards Zach Orr, but it just, to me, felt like the messaging wasn't there. And I don't know if that's true or not, but that's just what it felt like to me. So getting those bigger guys out there on the edge, like bigger players along those lines, getting some bigger corners in the building, I think would help them out. Again, that's not saying, okay, get rid of all your smaller guys like Nate Wiggins, see all these guys. No, I mean, those guys are still good. They're still impactful, but I do think that there has to be just a mindset change and a mentality change. I mean, we heard it last year from guys like Marlon Humphrey, right? Getting back to that 2000 style Ravens defense. And look, they were anything but that last season. But if they're really serious about that, and by the way, they absolutely should be, you have to bring in certain players that fit the mentality of that, first of all. Because again, like if a guy can play, a guy can play. And there are smaller players like Nate Wiggins, despite like the frame stuff and everything, he can play physical. Like he gets in there and he does stuff like that. So it's not about, okay, all these corners have to be built like Marlon Humphrey, or, all these safeties have to be built like Kyle Hamilton. But I do think that the bully mentality has to come back. I mean, it does. This team is predicated on defense. I get Lamar's come in here and he's kind of redefined the standard of what offense is in Baltimore, and honestly what the quarterback position is in the NFL. But this team is defense. And it felt just gross to watch them on defense last season. And part of that, I think, was that it was just like at times the defense felt discombobulated. They weren't on the same page. They need to have that tenacity. And I think that guys like Anthony Weaver, Jesse Minter, a lot of these position coaches they brought in are going to be able to restore that. Then, I mean, we still see the fire and competitive spirit from these guys, but it's going to take, I think, bringing in a couple of different players that'll be able to fit what the Ravens want to do and be able to go out there and perform at a very high level while also having that swagger that we saw. I mean, we can go back to 2000, yeah, for sure. But like, even 2023 is the more recent example. Like, that defense was all over the place in a good way. And you could tell that they had it. They knew that they were good. They were playing with that tenacity. They knew that they were the best unit on the field. And that defense was historic that season, much like it was in 2000. You look at the 2006 Ravens. There are a lot of other defensive units that we can talk about if you want to go Ravens, if you want to go NFL. Those units were good because, again, they bullied teams and they erased their will early in that game. And it felt like the opposite last year for the Ravens, where something happened, boom, the Ravens' will was erased on defense themselves. And that's kind of how things spiraled out of control. So I think Jeremiah is correct. And it's not about the fact of like, oh, just bring in big people. It's no, bring in these bully guys, like guys that are going to have that swagger. And again, I'm not saying they don't already have those types of players in the roster, because they do. They have a lot of them. But that's why sports are so interesting. And it's a team mentality of like, hey, you can have players that have that mentality, but you got to be coached up by coaches that have that mentality. You got to have everybody on the same page. And that's why last year just felt so weird for the Ravens, because, it just felt like the messaging, and even like some of the comments made from coaches and even some players were weird. It was a weird season. So I'd expect them to kind of go back to that. We've heard Jesse Minter and Eric Costa talk about the pass rush and how important that's going to be, and just kind of figuring that out. I think that's where you start with this whole thing, but it's a 3-level problem. Now, some levels of the defense are more problems than others, but yeah, I'd expect the Ravens to get back to a bully mentality because of the coaches that are now in the building. And you already have, I think, most of the players you need there, but you still need to add more. That's the thing. This I guess there's not like a complacent level to start at with the coaching staff. They're going to come in, they're going to do their thing. But I guess for Eric DeCosta, I don't think he will be. I think he learned from last year genuinely. But it's about not being complacent and figuring things out and making sure that you put your team in the best position. And how you do that is you get the swagger back. You get the swagger back. And I'm hopeful they can do that this season. And hopefully they do that this season. Coming up, though, in the second part of the show, we'll talk about team report cards. The Ravens, their report card, along with the rest of the NFL, that reportedly was put out. So stay tuned. Plenty coming up on the show. First of the show is brought to you by Indeed. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill still sitting open. When the pressure's on, you need the right hire. This is a job for sponsored jobs. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps to reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for: skills, experience, location. So you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire. This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And the show is brought to you by HomeChef. As the new year gets going, a lot of people are trying to simplify their routines, and dinner is a big one. Between busy work days, cold winter nights, and packed schedules, having an easy, reliable dinner plan makes a huge difference. That's where HomeChef comes in. HomeChef takes the stress out of cooking by delivering fresh, pre-portioned ingredients right to your door with easy-to-follow recipes that actually taste great. They're rated #1 by users of other meal kits for quality, convenience, value, taste, and recipe ease. And it's easy to see why. Meals come ready to fit your schedule, 30-minute recipes, oven-ready trays, or quick lunches. Over 30 weekly options, including family-sized meals and different dietary choices. And recipes are simple but feel elevated, even restaurant quality, with dishes co-created by chefs like Gordon Ramsay. For a limited time, HomeChef is offering my listeners 50% off your first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. Just go to HomeChef.com/lockedon. That's HomeChef.com/lockedon for 50% off your first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. Must be an active subscriber to receive free dessert. And the show is brought to you by FanDuel. Ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person? FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. Use your profit boost on any NBA future, and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for two. That's right, flights, tickets, the whole experience. If you're already looking at the board and thinking about which team can make a deep run, this is the perfect time to lock it in. I love futures this time of year, whether it's picking a team to win the championship or grab a conference title. It adds that extra layer of excitement to every game down the stretch. And now, not only can your pick cash, but it could also send you to the finals. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Moving along, Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher still here with you on this Thursday, Locked On Ravens PM edition of the show. Thanks again for being here, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every single day. Again, we have 5 days a week, plus more daily Ravens coverage and content for you now twice per day, both in the morning at 6 a.m. Eastern time, Monday through Friday, and in the evening, 6 p.m. Eastern time. That's Monday through Friday as well. So we have that alongside all the other stuff we give you, like bonus episodes, instant reactions, watch along, squad show, and the Everydayer Club here on Locked On Ravens. We get exclusive access to one-on-one text conversations with me, ad-free episodes, and a lot more. So be sure you check out the link in the description below, as well as on the Locked On website on the Locked On Ravens page. Report cards are here, and I guess they weren't supposed to be there, but they got there. So they were apparently obtained by ESPN. If you remember, or if you don't know, there was a grievance by the NFL against the NFLPA, and they won that grievance where apparently the report cards violated the collective bargaining agreement by disparaging NFL clubs and individuals. So that is something that happened. And also the memo stated players had no role in the commentary included, which is interesting. So that essentially meant that the reports are not going to be made public, but they'll continue to conduct the surveys. That's what the NFLPA said. Well, those were obtained by ESPN. Usually there were paragraphs associated with these, but this time it was just the actual grade. So for the Ravens, their report card is as follows here, reported by ESPN. Treatment of families, B+. Home game field, A. Food/dining area, B. Nutritionist/dietitian, A-. Locker room, B-. Training room, A. Training staff, B. Weight room, A. Strength coaches, A. Position coaches, B. Offensive coordinator, B-. Defensive coordinator, B+. Special teams coordinator, B+. Team travel, B-. Head coach, B. General manager, A-. Team ownership, A+. And actually, in terms of the full rankings overall, Kaler, I believe, I'm positive I didn't get that name right or pronounced it right. The Ravens were 12th overall in the full team rankings there. But I thought this, look, I guess that's a mixed result in terms of like they were not in the top 10, but I think this is pretty good overall. And especially, realizing that this all was stuff about, who was their head coach last season? John Harbaugh, was Todd Monkenot coordinator, Zach Orr-D coordinator. I'm surprised. Look, the players liked Zach Orr, so I'm not surprised he was at a B+. I mean, the worst grade here was the team travel in the locker room. I'm surprised about the locker room, but I guess there's stuff there that, I guess they don't like. Usually there, again, were paragraphs that would explain a little bit more about what the actual, what went into the actual grading of things. But to me, it shows, hey, there's belief in Eric DeCosta with the A-. There's obviously belief in Steve Bisciotti with the ownership. And look, a lot of teams can't say the A in terms of ownership. I mean, there were a lot of A- and such with the ownership somewhat, but, the Ravens, as we know, a lot of people like Steve Bisciotti. So that doesn't surprise me at all. Ravens have come a long way from the whole Steve Saunders thing and the F-. So I'm glad that we don't have to deal with that anymore with the Ravens. But I say this is pretty solid. And again, the Ravens are widely regarded as one of the best organizations in the NFL, obviously for their on-field product, but what they bring off of the field. And so, I'm glad that the nutritionist and dietitian is that grade is good. The weight room they really like, treatment of families in that B+ territory. I mean, there's a lot of things here that are positives for the Ravens. And I'm curious next year if this gets leaked again to ESPN. I'm sure that the coordinator grades maybe will be A's, hopefully, after good seasons. But we're not going to know. Position coaches as a whole, actually. So, I mean, the staff in general was like, I guess, for some of these guys. But again, I'm just kind of excited for a new era here in the coaching department. Obviously, when it comes to a lot of this other stuff, there, like locker room isn't impacted by coaches. And I guess, hey, maybe Jesse Minter wants to take some of that stuff out of the locker room like Lamar did. Maybe that's a different conversation. But yeah, I mean, this overall, I think is very good for Baltimore. There are a lot of teams that can't say the same. Pittsburgh actually was last in the league. Pittsburgh's report card was terrible, absolutely awful. So it could be worse. But for the Ravens, I mean, look, you get nothing below a B-. I think you take that 10 times out of 10. Of course, no organization is perfect, but I think where it mattered, the Ravens were generally very good. And again, like I said, in certain categories, they definitely have come a long way. So hopefully this is a good sign of things to come. And again, with the offensive coordinator being a B-, I guess maybe that shares a little insight into what the relationship was between Monken and some of the players. I'm not sure. Again, I'm not saying that's the case, but I'm glad we got to see the grades at least. Even if there aren't paragraphs explaining it, I'm glad we got to see these reported grades here by ESPN. That's all I have here today, though, on Locked On Ravens PM. Thanks so much for tuning in to the show. On the web, be sure to like and subscribe button in video form and follow along and subscribe in audio form for 5 days a week, plus more of daily Ravens coverage coming up. We will have our regularly scheduled programming tomorrow, as well as Locked On Ravens PM. So be sure to stay tuned. I'll see you right back here soon on Locked On Ravens.